2026 is coming. The global economy will never be the same. A storm is brewing, a convergence of forces so powerful that it threatens to shatter the very foundations of our financial world. While mainstream media distracts you with fleeting headlines and political theater, the gears of a massive economic reset are turning, quietly and relentlessly, just beneath the surface. This isn't a prediction. It's an observation of a trajectory that has been set in motion for years, a collision course with a reality that most are unprepared to face. By 2026, the world we know, the one built on decades of credit expansion, globalization, and the unwavering dominance of the US dollar, will be a relic of the past. The changes ahead will be profound, impacting every aspect of your life, from the value of your savings to the stability of your job and the cost of your daily bread. The story begins with the undeniable decay of the current global reserve currency, the US dollar. For over half a century, the dollar has been the bedrock of international trade and finance, a privilege that has allowed the United States to run staggering deficits and export its inflation to the rest of the world. But this exorbitant privilege is coming to an end. Nations around the globe, led by the BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, now expanding to include major energy producers, are actively constructing an alternative financial system. They are tired of being held hostage by American monetary policy and geopolitical whims. This isn't just talk, it's action. They are settling trades in their own currencies, hoarding gold at a record pace, and building new payment systems that completely bypass the SWIFT network. Each bilateral trade agreement settled outside the dollar is another crack in the dam. By 2026, these cracks will have multiplied, creating a fissure so wide that the dam itself will break, unleashing a flood of dollars back to American shores, and triggering a hyperinflationary crisis unlike anything seen in a developed nation in modern history. Simultaneously, we are on the brink of a sovereign debt catastrophe of epic proportions. Governments worldwide, particularly in the West, have been on an unprecedented borrowing binge for decades, papering over economic cracks with freshly printed money. The COVID-19 pandemic threw gasoline on this fire, pushing national debts to astronomical levels. Now, the bill is coming due. Rising interest rates, a necessary evil to combat the inflation they created, have turned this debt from a manageable burden into a ticking time bomb. Countries like the United States, Japan, and many in Europe are now in a debt-death spiral. They must issue new debt just to pay the interest on their old debt. It's a Ponzi scheme on a national scale, and it is mathematically destined to collapse. By 2026, we will see the first major sovereign defaults, sending shockwaves through the global bond market, the supposed safest asset class end, vaporizing trillions of dollars in wealth, held in pensions, insurance funds, and retirement accounts. Your safe investments will be revealed as anything but. Adding another layer of chaos to this perfect storm is the unstoppable march of artificial intelligence and automation. While proponents herald a new era of productivity and convenience, they conveniently ignore the devastating social and economic dislocation that will accompany it. We are not just talking about factory jobs anymore. AI is coming for white-collar professions, accountants, lawyers, coders, analysts, and even creative professionals. Millions of high-paying, stable careers will be rendered obsolete in a breathtakingly short period. This will create a permanent underclass of citizens, unable to find work in a world that no longer needs their skills. The resulting social unrest, combined with the collapse of government tax revenues, will create a volatile and unpredictable political landscape. By 2026, the social fabric of Western nations will be strained to its breaking point as governments resort to desperate measures like universal basic income put for, with more printed money further, fueling the inflationary fire and eroding the value of your labor. As these tectonic plates of finance, debt, and technology grind against each other, the very nature of money itself will be called into question. In response to the imploding fiat system, central banks are racing to develop their own digital currencies, known as CBDCs. They will sell these to the public as a modern, efficient, and secure alternative to physical cash and commercial bank deposits. But make no mistake, this is not about convenience. It's about control. A CBDC would grant governments a direct, real-time view into every single transaction you make. It would give them the power to program your money to set expiry dates on your savings to force you to spend, to block transactions for goods or services they disapprove of, and to directly tax or seize funds from your account with the click of a button. By 2026, the infrastructure for this digital panopticon will be largely in place, and following the next major financial crisis, governments will present it as the only solution, forcing citizens to trade their last vestiges of financial freedom for the illusion of security. The war on cash will be complete, and financial privacy will become a distant memory. Furthermore, the geopolitical landscape is shifting as dramatically as the economic one. The unipolar world, dominated by the United States since the fall of the Soviet Union, is over. We are entering a multipolar era, characterized by competing blocks of power with conflicting interests. The conflict in Ukraine was merely the first major tremor, revealing the deep fissures between the West and the rising powers of the East. This new reality is one of deglobalization. Supply chains once optimized for efficiency are now being reconfigured for resilience and national security. This means that the era of cheap goods, made possible by offshoring production to low-wage countries, is finished. Reshoring and nearshoring production will be an inflationary process, driving up the cost of everything from electronics to clothing. This shift will also create new flashpoints for conflict over resources, trade routes, and spheres of influence. By 2026, the world will be a far more dangerous and fragmented place, where economic warfare is a constant threat and the risk of military confrontation between major powers is higher than at any point since the Cold War. In the face of this unprecedented convergence of crises, what can the average person do? Burying your head in the sand is not an option. The first step is to understand the gravity of the situation and accept that the system you have trusted is fundamentally broken. The strategies that worked for the last 40 years, investing in a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds, saving in cash, will lead to financial ruin in the coming decade. You must reposition yourself for a new paradigm, one defined by currency debasement, asset confiscation, and systemic volatility. This means moving a portion of your wealth outside of the traditional financial system. It means owning real, tangible assets that cannot be printed into oblivion or erased with a keystroke. Physical gold and silver have been the ultimate store of value for 5,000 years, surviving every empire, every currency collapse, and every government. They are the antithesis of the debt-based fiat system. They are anonymous, decentralized, and universally recognized as money. Beyond precious metals, consider assets that have intrinsic value in the real world. Productive farmland, real estate that generates rental income, and even essential commodities are all forms of real wealth that will hold their value as paper assets are incinerated. Developing practical skills will also be invaluable. In a world of economic turmoil, the ability to produce food, repair essential equipment, or provide a critical service will be more valuable than a college degree in a field that has been automated. Building strong local communities and networks of trusted individuals will be your greatest insurance policy against systemic collapse. When global supply chains break down and institutions fail, it will be your local community that provides security and support. The transition will be difficult, and the world on the other side of 2026 will be unrecognizable to many. But for those who see the writing on the wall and prepare accordingly, it will also be a time of immense opportunity. Wealth is never destroyed. It is merely transferred, and in the greatest wealth transfer in human history that is about to unfold, you must decide whether you will be a victim or one of the few who had the foresight to prepare. The clock is ticking. 2026 is coming. The global economy will never be the same.